iTestify is about testifying of what Jesus Christ has done and can do in each of our lives. Through testimony of people just like you and through study of His Word, our prayer is to encourage each follower of Christ to be a light in this world. So let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. Matthew 5:16.
Hi friends, welcome to another episode of iTestify. We have with us Dr. Jackson, and Dr. Jackson is the Dean of Faculty in Arts and Sciences at the Middle East University. Where is the Middle East University? I'm assuming it's the Middle East, but maybe more specifically.
Yes, thank you. It's located in the country of Lebanon, more specifically in the city of Beirut. It's a small little country, kind of in the eastern Mediterranean, and the university sits on a hill overlooking the city and the ocean.
And how long has it been in that location?
It's been almost 80 years.
80 years.
It's been there for a long time. It's coming up to its 80th anniversary.
Excellent. And do you know who started it?
There was a person named George Keogh who had a vision of education way back in the 40s, I believe, I guess, and started the institution.
Right. And it's growing, or is it...
There's been... Lebanon had 15 years of civil war. And that set many things back. And so those were many years of struggle, but God had His hand over the institution, and it survived the Civil War. And now it's really beginning to blossom again for the work.
Now, the university, does it have a mission that's very unique other than just teaching people about arts and sciences?
Yes. Well, I've been there now 2.5 years or so. One of the things we're doing is we've started a pre-med program. So we want to train students to become health workers and future doctors. And the vision, my particular vision for my department, is to really train young people to go out and not just think about themselves, but what they can do for others. How can they be of service as a doctor, a dentist, or a health worker?
Excellent, excellent.
Can you share with us a few reasons as to why you decided to go to the Middle East University?
Yeah, well, it started about 6 years ago, and I actually was working in California and with Adventist young people, and we went on a mission trip, and we were going to do health expos with my pre-med students. I had a group of pre-med students here, and we went there, and actually we arrived there, and people said, you may have heard these things before, it won't work, it's not a good location, people won't come, people, the religious differences, it's not going to work, they're not going to want to talk to you, and so forth. And well, we're there, we're going to start. We were doing blood pressure, blood sugar, health counseling, and so forth, and we just started not knowing what to expect. And we were getting 100 people a day. We were swamped with people. Wow. That's the first time I'd ever interacted with refugees. It was fairly early on in the Syrian war, and there were lots of refugees, there still are, and as well as Lebanese people, and that, it changed my life. I have never been the same since that first day. We put up the banners in Arabic, the New Start banners in Arabic. People saw it, and they started coming, and it just overwhelmed myself and my students. We've never been the same since that first health expo that we started almost 6 years ago now.
Wow.
How many students, was this from Weimar, with Weimar?
This is Weimar, yeah. I was working at Weimar Institute, and we had a pre-med, well, it has a pre-med program, and the students basically organized what we were doing, the health stuff. We had videos, we did talks, and we were just overwhelmed with the need that the people had, and what we could even do for them in the little time we were there, but just direct them and listen to them. A lot of post-traumatic stress, a lot of hurting people, a lot of hopelessness, refugees, and it was a blessing to experience that with those people.
Excellent.
I'm just curious because I've gone on mission trips before, visited other countries, and usually there are barriers that are, kind of obvious, like language, culture, religion. But are there any barriers that you see that are unique just maybe to the region that you're in, or maybe for your experience? Yeah,
and that's when we realized the value in health ministry. Now the union, the Middle East North Africa Union, now has a health department with a coordinator, and they're doing health expos all over the different countries. The Middle East North Africa Union is 20 countries, 550 million people, about 3,500 Seventh-day Adventists, and only about 1,000 local people. And many of those are expats. And when you look at the health situation, smoking is some of the highest smoking rates in the world, are some of these countries. Just diabetes, obesity, blood pressure issues, and then all the depression and psychological issues. There's huge needs. The health field is really a way to reach people because the need is so great. It really stood out. The needs were just so great.
As a university, you're not, I mean, your goal isn't to do health expos. So when you're having students come, or even, you know, professors to come and work and do their time, what is the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month like at the university?
Well, let me go forward now. That was 6 years ago. We actually had 3 different trips doing that, and each time we were getting the same results and amazing stories of what had happened on those trips. And through the course of time, things opened up, and I ended up taking a position I actually moved there with my wife and my youngest son, and we live in Beirut. You know, a lot of people say, is it safe? It's actually very safe. It's a wonderful country. And so now I work in an academic environment. That's the Health Expos is where it kind of started. And now we run a department. I'm involved in developing this pre-med program. We're halfway through the first cohort of students. But with our students, we're wanting to really get them to grasp what true education really is. And so we do a lot of practical work. We do the health expos. We do, you know, any sort of visitation we can. We work with refugees. We've run several, worked with the Middle East North Africa Union doing Stop Smoking, the Breathe Free 2. Amazing results because smoking is such an issue. So we're incorporating all these practical experiences in the regular academic program that you would have at any pre-med program.
Interesting. How many students usually come through?
Well, we've just started. We've got less than 10, so we're starting. The university is small. There's less than 200 students. We're hoping it will grow. We have both local Lebanese students from non-Adventist and non-Christian environments, and then we have many international, many Adventist students from around the world. If you go to our campus church on a weekend, we have probably over 40 countries represented in our church. It's quite amazing, right there on the little hill. It's called Sebtia, the name of the hill where the university is located. The suburb is called Sebtia, which means like Sabbath Hill in Arabic. So the whole region was named after the Sabbath from the early missionaries. I don't know if you read the stories, Midge in Lebanon. Wow. Some of those missionaries back in the 1940s. They were the early workers, and the whole region is named the Sabbath, basically, where the university is located.
Wow. Wow. Could you go back and share with us a story that touched you during those early days of the Health Expo, or those early years of the Health Expo? You mentioned that you had some great experiences.
I have some, I can remember several of one of my students is now my daughter-in-law that was with me, and my son was there. And so there were people coming through that were really hurting. I can remember a couple times, one of my students, Shannon, who's actually about to finish medical school here, I believe she was a refugee, had a baby. And Shannon said, "Can I hold your baby?" And because the lady needed to do things at the Health Expo, and so Shannon takes the baby. I got a photo of Shannon. The baby went to sleep, and Shannon's like holding the baby there with this great big smile on her face. And it was those sort of heart-to-heart interactions. We had many people came through, and there's one. I do have a picture of this when one of our students, Madeline, who actually is also training to be a health professional. Some people were very stressed coming through. She sensed that the people were very stressed. And she said, "Just give it to Jesus. Just give your cares to Jesus." And the people were just smiling and glowing. Which brings me to another story. Several years later, after that first trip, we went to a different church, this time a Christian church in Lebanon. Lebanon's 48% Christian. There's Catholics and Maronites and Orthodox, many other churches. And through a connection, we set up in a church that I think it was a Catholic church, I think, and we ran the health expo there. There was a lady there that wasn't happy. I guess she might have been a nun or something, and she was not. She locked the doors, didn't let us use the chairs, the toilets, and the bathroom, and she was. But you know, she watched us during the course of the day, and her heart changed, and her whole demeanor towards us changed. And she got very helpful, and she opened the doors. How can I help? She could just see, even though she didn't like, I guess, what we stood for in her mind, when she could see what we were doing and just showing love to the people, it not only melted her heart, it changed her whole attitude. And the person that was helping us, that helped set this up, we said, why are you doing this? Why are you doing? She got so enthusiastic. She was going and taking people off the street, bringing them to our health expo. A local lady, a local Lebanese lady, and one of our students, when we were talking to her, said, like, why are you doing this? You don't know us? And she said, your faces were shining. I could see that your faces were shining, and we're thinking, wow, like, what did she see? We don't know what we saw. And I thought of the story of Moses, you know, when he came down and his face was shining. Here's a lady, she didn't tell us, well, any technique, that's all she said. Your faces were shining. So somehow, through these young people, the people could see something different, I guess. I guess it was just different.
And so after 3 trips, then what? I mean, I'm sure the door to teach there was probably open, but what made you go?
Well, of course, with any of these things, there's a series of steps that you take. And it became apparent that they wanted to restart. They had a biology program, I guess, maybe 30 years ago. You know, the Civil War came and all the problems. And they wanted to restart it. Well, I'm a biologist. I'm a marine biologist. That's what I am. And through discussions and through this transition time to a new position, I was saying, well, you know, we don't have to do just a biology degree. Why don't you do a pre-med degree? And that's where the nucleus started. You know, the other thing that happened is we're working with Andrews University as well. So students can actually come to the Middle East University and enroll in Andrews and get an Andrews. They can even get an Andrews degree with us. So that really has made it more international for us, for our international students.
Now, is that only for pre-med, or do you have other?
No, pre-med, in business, a number of areas they can do, they can get an Andrews degree, and they can certainly get Andrews credits. You know, we do theology. We have a wonderful theology department, business, education, the pre-med, graphic design, computer science. Some of them they can't get Andrews degrees, but many of them they can.
Wow, that's great.
How was the life there? Can you take us just through your daily life at school?
The university is just a little oasis on this hill.
That's what it seems like when you describe it.
Yeah. Lebanon is very crowded, very congested, very polluted. I often go down the hill if we're shopping or something. I come back with a chest that hurts or my eyes are burning just from the pollution. It really is very polluted. We're blessed to have a little forested hill for our campus. So, and it's a very crowded, they continue to build apartments and cars parking on the road. So driving up Septia Hill is you wind your way through people and cars. It's very different than anything you'd see in the U.S. So we have our campus with our day students coming. Our academic program is like any academic program you would see in any of our Adventist schools or many other universities. So we have our day students coming. We have our international students there that live in dormitories. And then we have our normal, our classes, our assembly time, and the kids that stay in the dorms, eat in the cafeteria. Very normal Adventist campus that you would see other places. But it's the vision that the potential of what these young people can go out and do. You know, Lebanon has been hurting for many years with the Civil War. A lot of post-traumatic stress with the Lebanese people who went through terrible, terrible situation during the war. But this new generation coming up, you can see a difference. You can see an openness. You can see a willingness. You can see that they're going to be the ones that are going to go forward with the work. And what we want to do, my vision for the pre-med program is to basically work myself out of a job, but train young people, young professionals We don't have many locally, as I mentioned, there's only 1,000 local, around about 1,000 Adventists that are local people, local Arabic, local Phoenician, Lebanese, whatever, in the whole Middle East region, 550 million people. We need more local workers, and that's the purpose of, one of the purposes of our campus, not only to be a light to reach out to local non-Christian and non-Adventist students that come to our campus, but to train workers for the MENA region. You know, we've trained some of the first pastors, the first pastor to Algeria, the first pastor in Morocco is being trained.
And MENA stands for
Middle East North Africa Union of Seventh-day Adventists. It's the Middle East. It's the Adventist the Adventist region
in there.
And what's the population of Lebanon?
Lebanon is, it's only like 4 to 5 million people. I think it's a very small country. But the refugee population is somewhere between 1 and 2 million. So I think it's got the highest, maybe that's a bit high, at least 1 million refugees and something like 4 million people. So I think it's got the highest ratio of refugees to any other country because it's so small.
Yeah, that's quite a strain on their economy and resources.
It is. It's a huge strain, as you can imagine, because we have all these basically unemployed people or people that are getting jobs, working for anything they can, and it creates a lot of strain. But you know, it is quite amazing. Lebanon it's very multicultural. People are used to working together with different religions. The whole government is made up of these different religious groups. And it kind of is like a model of how people that are very diverse can actually get on together. So Lebanese are used to mixing in a multicultural environment. So really, and I asked one of my local friends, because there's tension between countries and so forth, and there's political disagreements between countries. And I said, well, how's it with these people that come? And they said, well, they're just poor people. It's not their fault. And they just open their arms and take them in. And it's a big social problem that the country's trying to work through. And there may come a time when many of the refugees will be able to go back when things settle down. But in the meantime, there's a huge population of people that have a great need. And it's kind of overwhelming. It's very overwhelming. But you think, well, if I can just help one or a few, maybe I can make a difference.
And I'm also just curious because a lot of times when we think of refugees, we think of them being in camps, separated from everyone, kind of off, forgotten about. But the way you're describing it, you come into contact with them.
No, that's a good point. There are some camps over near the border, and I believe they're still in existence, but many of the refugees are just integrated into the city. So you may get a huge number of family members living in a little tiny apartment, sometimes without windows. So they're living in very cramped conditions, getting whatever sort of work they can do. So there are many of them. You'll walk the streets and you can see, by the way they're dressed, that they're refugees. And they're sort of integrated in the city.
And so that kind of just, leads to my next question is how do you foresee that you, in the university as well as others, maybe doing other work in the cities, how do you foresee that you'll be able to help them long-term, short-term, that sort of thing?
Well, I can only do so much as an individual. As I said, it's overwhelming. But if we can train the next generation of young people, the work can go ahead exponentially. And so we're a training institution.
Okay.
We want to inspire other people to go out, do the work that I can't do. I'm actually a marine biologist. I'm a biologist.
Yeah.
But we're training pre-meds to get their medical training, dentists, other health workers. They can go out, or ministers even, teachers. There's a great need for teachers in the Middle East to go out and they can make the difference in the world.
Okay.
Change the Middle East.
I wanted, please go.
No, you go, Wade.
Ladies first.
Okay. I was just going to actually go back to your vision and ask if you had a verse,
Yes.
a Bible verse.
Yes. Let me share that, because that was one from that early. We talked about that first trip and so forth, and how we were impacting the people and how it impacted us. And the mind goes to a verse in Matthew, chapter 4. and starting at verse 23, Matthew 4. And it's about the ministry of Jesus. And it says, Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. So Jesus did what? He was a teacher, he was a preacher, and he was a healer. So he was a medical missionary as well. And then it says, news about him spread all over Syria, and people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Large crowds from Galilee and Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. Back in verse 24 is where it said the news spread all over Syria. We thought, wow, we're actually doing the work of Jesus here.
Wow.
Jesus was ministering to people. The news of what he was doing spread right throughout Syria. And what really struck us is that, wow, the Syrian people are right here. We're ministering to the Syrian people just like Jesus was doing.
Amazing.
And I guess that's our modus operandi, I would see for my students. Go out and do the ministry of Jesus. Heal people emotionally, physically, spiritually. Wow. The need is huge.
Yeah, I wanted to focus on the teacher part. Christ brought beautiful spiritual lessons from nature. And as a marine biologist, how do you see God's glory and beauty in Lebanon, in Egypt, and other places in the Middle East?
It's amazing, even in the city that it is, in the smog, you can still see creation. And at night, you can hear the jackals howling in the hills, which is great. When the evening comes, the bats are flying around. There's these amazing chameleons that crossing the road or in the bushes. So there's amazing, wonderful wildlife. It really is, because it's between, you're talking biologically, Europe and Africa here, it's kind of the crossroads where you get quite a diversity of fauna. So it's still there. There's a lot of development and so forth. And the other thing with education is, there's so much out there with evolution and taking people away from God. It's wonderful to be in a teaching environment where you can teach about biology and bring people back to the Creator God, put it in perspective. By the way, one of the things we need is we would love for students to come and spend a year. I was just at a GYC conference where they're asking students to spend a year in missions, to be challenged to do that. Wonderful. It's a wonderful thing for young people to do. The good thing about our university is they could actually come, they can even enroll in Andrews University, come to us, and they can do a year of missions but keep doing their studies. They could take a year off, or they can come do their degree. So we would love Christian young people, Adventist young people, to come to be able to be ministers right on our campus, to be involved in these activities we've talked about, and to encourage even our young people on our campus.
And how would they go about doing that?
They could contact, they can look up Middle East University online, and they could make contact with us that way. They can contact any one of us. I don't know if any of my details will be on the screen later. Email us. We'd be happy to talk to them. I do find a lot of people have a burden for the work in the Middle East and feel inspired and convicted to want to go do something. So the best thing for a young person to do is to get an education. Well, why not get your education while you do ministry? The refugees are right down the hill. A mile down the hill, the refugees are there, right outside our gates. So the opportunities to combine ministry and education is huge. Quite unique with our location in the Middle East. By the way, we're not only the only Seventh-day Adventist institution in the Middle East, we're probably one of the few, if not the only Protestant university left in the Middle East.
Wow.
In the short time that you've been there, I don't know if you have a testimony that you can share. Maybe not able to share. I'm not sure. But do you have a testimony of seeing someone go further than just being interested in spiritual things beyond like prayer or anything beyond that?
all I can say is that I'm seeing lives changed. I'm seeing it all the time. I'm seeing it from a variety of people of different backgrounds, and lives are being changed, and people's lives are being impacted. And my passion is for people to see the true God. You know, another thing we do, a God that loves them. Another thing we do is I run a summer camp where students from all over Lebanon come, all over. And we run a science summer camp on campus, and we go on trips, and the kids just have a wonderful time. You know, I was sitting on the, and I'm a marine biologist, so I take them to the beach, and there was a young lady sitting there, and she had a terrible, you could see she had a terrible scar. I could tell that she had a heart operation. It's a long story. I've had a heart operation in the past, and that's another story. But so I immediately connected with this young lady. I said, "You've had a heart operation. I have too. You know, we belong to the same club." I could connect with her. She was attending this summer camp, sitting there on the beach. And she went on to tell me she had actually had multiple heart operations and just a very difficult time. You know, at the end, when they were handing out certificates at the end of the summer camp, I was able to sit down with her and say, "You know what? God has a plan for your life. He has a special plan for your life. He has protected you through these surgeries. He has something for you to do. And I don't know if I'll see her again." And those are the sort of connections that we make with the students. And that, you know, sometimes it's hard being a missionary. Honestly, it's not all romantic, but it's when you connect with people, it makes it all worth it. In fact, when I have those sorts of experiences, it eclipses everything I did as a marine biologist in my past career as a researcher, because that was another part of my life. I'm now in a more service mode. And when you have those connections with people, or there's a student in your office that's crying and they have maybe a dysfunctional family, and you can just pray with them and encourage them and say, yes, you can get through and you can make a difference, it makes it all worth it.
The picture that you've painted sounds to me like it's an incredibly unique opportunity where you can get a solid Adventist and missionary education while being around local people.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly. We would love students to come join us, and it would be a life-changing experience for them. It really is a very and it's a safe environment. That's kind of surprises people. It really is quite safe, and it really is a very life-changing place. And you've got to be there and witness it and work with the people to really experience it.
Right. That's part of the education.
That's part of the education. Yeah, that's part of the educational experience we want the students to have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for coming and sharing your experience with us.
My pleasure.
It's very unique, what the kind of work that you're doing, the experience that you're talking about, you can offer, not only for the refugees, but for people that can come and help. And so also I'd like to say for those who are interested in donating, you can contact the General Conference, 12501 Old Columbia Pike in Silver Spring, Maryland, and zip code 20904. Thank you for tuning in to iTestify, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.